Hey guys, we are live. It's been about 2 months, but we're back live with Taz Garcia, a man who wears many hats: actor, director, producer, author. You wrote a couple of books. I read one of them, good book, and also, of course, a martial artist. So, how you doing,
Ah,
man?
fantastic. I'm really excited we're doing this. How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Let's jump right into this with a question that the audience put up here. Hard Rock Soloing 89. Which actor did you enjoy working with the most?
Ooh, that's a very, very tough question. There's been so many talented actors that I've worked with and so many iconic ones. I got to say, just to kind of break the ice right here, one of my most personal favorites is Jackie Chan.
Of course. Can you tell us the movie? Because I think you guys shot this a while ago, but it's not even out yet, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the most recent movie that we shot was labeled Project X, and then it got changed to Project X Traction, and now it's known as Snafu. And apparently, last week it came out as Hidden Strike. So it's always a surprise. It's an ever changing title.
When did you guys start shooting this anyway?
We where or when?
When?
When? Geez, we started in 2018, summer of
2018. Like,
2018. Yep,
what's going
yep.
on, man?
No,
Like, why
well,
is
I
it not
mean,
out?
it was a ton of fun. It was a lot of fun, but the pandemic started right at the cusp of when we wrapped. So it was due for a premiere in 2019, and that's kind of where that big news started making waves and traveling all around the world. And one thing got in the way, and then the next thing that got in the way, and the dates just kept getting pushed back and back and back. And I mean, the good news is, it seems like there's light at the end of the tunnel now.
Okay. And did you shoot that in China?
Yeah, we shot it in China and Mongolia. It was my
Hmm.
first time in Mongolia.
Oh,
Beautiful place. Beautiful place.
that's exciting. So it sounds like you were like a big and still are a big fan of Jackie Chan.
What?
No, you're not
What?
a fan of Jackie Chan at all? Not even
Jackie?
close?
What?
Jackie who?
Humongous fan. Humongous fan. And it's yeah, yeah, definitely a huge fan of his. Uh, probably until the day I die.
Is he your favorite guy then?
He's by far up there, and I feel the one really different element that Jackie brings out of all the other action folks is the stunt element, and the fact that he also incorporated the stunts, the death-defying stunts, with the family um, safe content that he was pumping out. So I think that was something that no one else has done before. The action we've seen, the gruesome, brutal, the angry, but never the way or the formula that he kind of put together. So it was, yeah, yeah, he's definitely
Yeah,
a
he
pioneer.
injected the comedy element. So is that kind of how you prefer the action, a little more like lighthearted and fun as opposed to like visceral and violent and bloody?
I'll tell you something. For me personally, I like. Uh, it depends on the character. It depends on the character because you don't want to go too slapstick
Sure.
and lose the element of the intensity of what's happening. Like if it's a revenge scene, you don't want to have people cracking up. It takes you out of the realistic storyline. But definitely, it takes a very different set of skills to be able to have that comedic timing because comedy is not easy.
No, no. Yeah, and if it's forced, it just it's very
Oh
hard
yeah,
to
oh
watch.
yeah,
It's very
yeah.
hard to watch
Kids
if
call it
it doesn't
cringy,
work.
right? Is that what it is now?
Like drama's cringy enough if it doesn't work, but comedy is just like, ah.
Yep, yep.
Now, so when you were filming that movie and started in 2018, was that the first time you ever met Jackie Chan?
No, it wasn't. Funny side story here. Before I moved to Toronto slash Canada, um, I was visiting a friend of mine in early, geez, 20. It was when the tuxedo happened. So they filmed that here, right in
Okay,
Toronto
sure.
downtown. And I ended up walking by downtown where the set was. And I saw a friend of mine on set, and I had met him through Kung Fu.
Hmm.
So next thing you know, I snuck into the tent where the stunties were warming up, and I started warming up with them like I belonged there the entire
Okay,
time.
sure.
And
Yeah.
clearly I stood out because they were all Asian, and I didn't blend in too well. They're like, "Hey,
Probably
you."
taller than most of them, I'm sure too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no, there were a few tall guys. There was one non-Asian there at the time, and that was Paul. And Brad wasn't he wasn't around yet. He was flying in later on in the
Mm.
week. But yeah, so I definitely stood up and they're like, "Hey, can you do some of the stuff?" And I said yes, and I did. And they said, "Great, well, let's have you in this bar scene." And the next thing you know, they couldn't use the scene because they realized I wasn't Canadian. So technically, I wasn't I wasn't able to work there as a legal citizen.
Hmm.
So yeah, that never made the scene and never made the cut in or the final cut of the movie. But that was the first time I actually got to meet him, and he came in, and everyone, addresses him as Big Brother, right? And
Big brother.
obviously in Mandarin, because my Mandarin was pretty decent. I heard that's like Daga, and I was like, oh my god, he's around here somewhere, and he was coming in, and you see the amount of respect. It's very martial arts vibes. It's kind of like you have the senior brothers, you have younger brothers, and everyone's like Big Brother came in, everyone's like the Sifu coming in, and it was insane, insane. The kid in me was screaming really
Sure.
loud. What you saw in the face was, "Hey Jackie, how are you?" But inside, I was like, "Come on, kid!" But
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Your acting kicked in,
Oh
playing it
man, oh
serious.
man, oh man! It was all engines, all hands on deck
Wow.
to try and control that. But yeah, that was the first time, and then the second time actually working with him on screen, getting to chill with him. There's a bunch of funny stories we could share later on today. Was during Project X or Hidden Strike now.
Now, do you know after that thing wrapped in 2019, like, did they end up shooting other stuff or was it pretty much locked and they just kind of had to do some post-production?
No, so what ended up happening is it was right at the cusp of Chinese New Year's
Mhm.
and Christmas for the American side of things. So they sent all of us home, and then they contacted me and said, "Hey, listen, there's one more scene for you. Do you want to come in, or we could cheat it from the back with someone else?" And I was like, it. uh, In my heart, it's really weird. My gut was like, you know what? You can go. It's a 37-hour flight because it's Inner Mongolia. Um, but something inside of me was like, no, no, no. You know what?
Mhm.
Just have them cheat it with someone else. And literally 7 hours later, a message from my assistant. She's like, "Good thing you didn't come in because there's talks about this weird flu, and we don't know if people can get on planes. We're not 100% sure what's happening.
Wow.
And good thing you didn't show up." And I was like, oh God, man.
You might have been stuck there, man.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's pretty harsh.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Hey, so your Instagram, and guys, follow Taz on
Sai
Instagram,
and
by the way.
Chen work together.
It's linked in the description. Yeah, but your Instagram, it says survived Gulf War, left corporate and teaching to inspire others through my acting and filmmaking journey. So when did you decide just to kind of drop everything else you were doing and say, I'm just going to do movie stuff?
You know what? I swear to you, the second I could do math, which is probably at a very young age, maybe at 5, I already knew I wanted to be a performer.
Okay.
And you've got the very traditional old school parents that are like, nope, you got to go to school, you got to do this and that.
Yeah.
And I got into pro sports, which was close enough. You were still on a stage, you were still performing constantly, you had an audience, you had fans. You could be a hero one day, you could be a villain the next day, depending
Mhm.
if you got the shot or missed the shot. But it was really, really interesting. Yeah, I knew I wanted to be under or in some kind of spotlight. I really wanted to entertain. I really wanted to inspire, and that's way before social media, way before any of that stuff happened. And then obviously, as you mature and you get older after 18, I was like, and that's what I'm doing. Right before then, it's like, what are you gonna do? It's like you're
Sure.
gonna drop off at school. You don't really have any authority to sign your own paperwork. You need a
Mhm.
guardian or a parent or someone like that. So the second that happened, I was like, man, I'm ready to go. I'm ready.
Mm.
So yeah, but I knew in my heart since I was a kid.
Yeah, you knew early on. I got to give a shout out, by the way. Camp Kunst Lifestyle. Check out his YouTube channel. Huge, probably one of the biggest, maybe the biggest one martial arts channel in Germany. Very talented guy. I met this guy in person doing the last Kumite, and he's the referee of the Kumite. So even though there are illegal, potentially some people might even die in the Kumite. I don't want to give anything
What?
away. maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. So he wasn't doing his job good as far as a ref, but as far as like a great guy and an actor, he did fine.
Nice, nice. Can't wait to see it, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be something, man. Capturing that 80s and 90s. So is that like, let me ask you, what do you think about action movies today? Because obviously you grew up with the 80s and 90s. You love those films. You were inspired by those. What do you think about action films today compared to that era?
Uh, you know what? It's two very different flavors. It's kind of like apples and oranges, but I feel like they need someone iconic. They really need someone iconic, whether it's because like the 80s, we had people that were iconic because of one-liners or their physique or their
Mhm.
jawline or how cheesy something was or the quick cuts or the split jumps or whatever it was. But nowadays I feel like it's pretty much all the same. It's all going through the same chef, the same system. It comes out the same, just different colors.
Hmm.
Lots of CGI stuff where back then it was very, very different. It was a lot of the performers really shining. And I get it. There's a lot of safety elements. There's a lot of aspects as a filmmaker that you get because you can control the elements, the weather. It's cheaper. You don't have to close down any roads, and you know you can really make sure the actors or performers are safe. I really get it, but it takes away a lot. And now the audience is getting smarter and smarter, so they really, really go back and they see they're like, holy, oh my god, that was real. No, that wasn't CGI. There was no strings, and you see they're yearning for that. It's the way I see it is film and fashion and everything else, it goes in a full circle, right? Like you see it, even as funny as it is with their cell phones, they went from big size cell phones to small, and now they're huge again. Sunglasses or glasses in general, they went from big frames to small frames to no frame, and now they're big frames again, right? So you see this whole cycle, like it's a one massive circle, and now the audience is getting smarter, and they you can't fool them as easy anymore. So they really want to see that quality. They really want to appreciate people that are really putting themselves out there on the line for the sake of their art and entertainment, and really the passion that they have can't be cheated,
Hmm.
right? So that's why I'm still a huge fan of the 80s, and that's why, sure, we've grown up with it. And there's a lot of really impressive things happening now, and so much talent that's happening now, and it's a completely different level too. Because when we started off, one backflip was wow, that was super impressive, right?
Sure.
And you had to go to a gym to see someone that knew how to do it for you to bug them once or twice. Hey, how do you do this again? But now you can just how to 720, how to do a double back tuck, double backflip, gainer, twist. So the standard is completely different, but the basic element of entertainment, I feel like it needs a little bit more infusion in today's world.
Yeah, for sure, man. It does feel much more like a factory today than it did back then. And there's something to be said about actual practical effects, right? But with going what you said, everything's cyclical. I think this stuff is coming back. Like even if you looked at the newest or the latest Predator movie, I think called Prey, I thought it was pretty good. Some people had
Yeah,
issues with it. I thought it was pretty good. But what I liked about it is that the younger audience who watched it, they wanted to see what came before it. So they went back to the 80s before they were ever alive and watched Arnold in the original Predator, and they liked it. Just like
exactly.
Cobra Kai is so popular, it's like they go back to the 80s with the Karate Kid movies. They see how amazing that was.
Yeah,
So
of
yeah, it's
course, of
very
course.
interesting.
Have you seen Extraction? Right,
I
Extraction.
love Extraction. That's
Yeah,
one action movie I love, dude.
yeah, that's a real helicopter. They're bringing on top of that train and everything, and they're really, really pushing everything. And I feel like Sam really pushed it because he's an action guy, so
Hmm.
he knows how to really capture action. And I feel that's also the second part of the formula is the fact that you could have directors of photography, cinematographers. You could have directors that are amazing with dialogue and amazing with capturing regular films. But then when it comes to action, they don't know how to capture it with the best angle without hurting the camera angle, without making it look cheesy or quick shakes to cover some flaws. And so, yeah, I think Sam's onto something with the Extraction series.
Action aside, what stuck with me, and I think this is what will stick and people remember, it's not so much the action. Yes, I love the action. The action is great. It was the character, man. It's so important for the character. Like it was a story about redemption with what happened in his past with his own son, and then him trying to redeem himself with this other, kid he doesn't even know. There was like there was some heart and some emotion
Right.
there,
Yeah.
and that stuck with me, man. Because I think we could all relate that that's just a common theme. Um, Redemption in films, like whether you talk about, it doesn't matter the genre, whether you talk about Groundhog Day, Shawshank Redemption, which that word's actually in the title. Like it's something that it's just a human story. It adds
100%.
that human element that a lot of action films I don't think do nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel in general, and this is not to take away from anyone. I feel in general when something touches a success area, someone else is like, "Oh, well, that's successful. Let's make it." And let's make another one, and let's make another one. And it's kind of like you're on this cruise control of just pumping the same thing without infusing any more originality into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the 80s and the 90s, they were real trailblazers and pioneers. And there's a lot of first time. It's kind of like what one man versus elements, one man versus aliens, one man versus predator, one man versus. It was really, really entertaining. And I mean, up until now, everything from A to Z was amazing. You had the score that kept you in. Even we've watched a bunch of those movies. And listen, the second I hit play on one of those movies, I don't want anyone walking in front of me. I don't want anyone saying, "Hey, by the way, do you want to do this?" I was like, "No, no, no. I'm watching this like it's the first time." And that's how good it is, or how good it was. Definitely there's a nostalgic aspect to it, but it really captures you. And I feel that's one of the biggest things now is now it's so easy for you to just feel like, well, that, yeah, like you're coming up with all these bits and pieces that take you out of the performance and even how it was shot, right? Even how it was shot back then, there was a lot of wider frames where you could really, really stay in the moment. Now it's a lot of, oh, you're talking, let's go to your face. I'm talking, let's go to his face. Okay, back and forth. Oh, your action, okay, let's see your fist, let's see your stomach, let's see your fist, let's see your stomach. So it takes you away from that intensity, right?
MTV editing, man. MTV had a big part to do with that.
Sure,
And
that's what you call it.
the interesting thing though is, like you said, they were pioneers. We never had Terminator before that. We never had Rambo. We never had Commando. We never had Bloodsport. I mean, I guess we kind of had Enter the Dragon, but we had the first of these movies. Now it's like they're still making Indiana Jones. It just came out like last weekend. They're still
Yep.
making like Terminator films a few years ago. They're still making the same thing, but trying, but not doing as good. Like I mentioned, the Prey movie. So they don't really have the pioneers like they did back then.
Yeah,
So
it's insane. It's insane to see it's still the same people that our parents watched that we watched are still making the same damn movies.
yeah, yeah,
Like
and
I had just wrapped a movie. Was it not a movie? It was a video game called Battle Strike Force. It was a mobile game that you could download from an app and play. It was super cool with Sly, and he's
well,
like,
we got to talk
"Yeah,
about
well,
that.
I'm gonna shoot Lost Rambo," and I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, it's called Last Blood." I was like, "What?" It's like, "What?" Right? So, it's him, same dude from the '80s,
Yeah.
same guy. This was in 2000 and we'll say 16, right?
Okay.
And he's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be me." I was like, "Okay." And the next thing you know, it went from the CGI version of Terminator, and now the reboot Arnie's in it. I was like, Sarah Connor's in it. I was like, "What the frick?"
Hey, how was Stallone in person, by the way? Because I
So
know
much
you made
fun.
that Instagram post.
So much fun. So much fun. Listen, there's two people that I grew up admiring, probably influenced because of my parents, because they love those two people a lot. And Sly, man, the first time I met him, I was like, oh my God. In my heart, just going up to shake his hand and just see his attitude and vibe and all that kind of stuff. I was like, please, please, please do not disappoint me. Please do not, please don't just be a character on screen because that happens a lot.
Hmm.
Like you see a character, you fall in love with a character, and then you go and meet them in person. You're like, oh man, that was a character. That's not who you are at all in real life. So Sly, oh my God, he's listen. He probably still thinks he's in his 30s. Joker, hardworking, doesn't forget where he came from. Like he's old school. He's so old school. Jackie, same thing, right? Like they're so old school. They're like, this is where I came from, and I'm never gonna forget that. It's kind of like you dangle this history card in front of you, and you're like, remember when I was here? I never want to be here again. Therefore, I'm always gonna keep going. It's kind of like something that's in their conscious chasing them, and that's why they keep going and going and going and going. It's them versus them.
That's
You know what I
great
mean?
to hear, man, because
Yeah.
that quote, "Never meet your heroes," because a lot of times people are disappointed, but I'll
Hmm.
say when I was working in Germany, a lot of people had met and worked with Stallone, and they had nothing but great stuff to say. Such a stand-up guy, so personal, so friendly, funny, gets along with everybody. Whereas, like I heard, and I'm not going to name names, a couple of other big stars were just like dicks and almost like, "Oh, how dare you even look at me?" type attitude. It's like, really, dude, come on, we're all people here, man. You don't need this like
Yep.
God
Yep.
complex, you know.
Listen, you just said it. You just said it, man. We're all people, right? And this is the biggest thing is a lot of stars, man, they don't realize that the audience makes them a star.
Uh
The
huh.
audience turns their heads and they walk away, don't support them anymore, don't buy their product anymore, don't watch their movies anymore. They're no longer at the top. They're no longer a star. They're extremely average, if not worse, because they used to be up here. So when they fall, it's a massive nosedive that they're going to crash real hard,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I've seen it, man. I know exactly what you mean. Where I've had a co-star we're equal, everything's fine, but we'll hit up a restaurant and then there's a waitress or a waiter or someone, and it's just they go off, and you're like, what? Like, damn.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
disappointing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
for people that
Yeah,
things go to their head, man.
yeah, yeah.
um, Here's a cool comment. Cinematic tendency, my buddy. If we were to have action star nowadays, like the ones in the 80s and 90s, I think they would be accused of toxic masculinity, which he makes a good point because, like, just to be honest, in Hollywood, there's kind of a woke agenda. You got women beating up, five dudes that weigh 200 pounds, for example, which it's like, okay, that's just not realistic. And some directors are against that. Like, for example, I'm going to work with Rene Perez in a couple of months. And, the film that we're going to do, he described like men are men and women are women. Like, there's and I've read the script, there's a very strong female character, but it's realistic. She's 120 pounds. She is not beating up these 200 plus pound prisoners. She's just not. So,
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, really, truthfully, the simplest thing would be if you don't want to watch it, or it's not your choice, your flavor, it doesn't tickle your fancy, however you want to put it, just skip the movie. Just keep scrolling through. That's ultimately what it is, right?
yeah, for sure.
Because if you keep going around and just really checking boxes for other people, your project is no longer ever going to be real or true to what it is. You're constantly going to go around. And the bottom line is in this industry and even in life is the fact that if you just keep doing stuff to satisfy people, it's always going to dissatisfy someone else on the other side, right?
For sure, man.
So,
There are like certain things that I've heard that Hollywood will put out though, which seems interesting because I'm all about like meritocracy, like the most qualified people should get the job. Doesn't matter like how they were born, man, or however they
yep,
want to claim
yep,
they are, regardless of how they were born. Not going to get in that discussion, but the most qualified person, regardless of their background, should get the job, the role, etc. But there are certain things in place where it's like, well, this movie has to have X amount of this kind of person, X amount of this kind of person. It's like, just get the best people, man.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's just the way of the industry. It's the culture. That's all it is, right? It's just we're so used to auditioning. We're so used to sometimes going head to head with friends or buddies or whatever it is, and may the best man, woman, or anything in between win.
Yeah, that's how it
You
should be,
know,
man.
really.
Hey, similar question for what we started. Hard Rock soloing '89. Which actor did you dislike working with the most?
All right. Okay. Here we go. Not a big name. It was actually someone that I mentored and helped. I had met this person. I'm not going to mention a name, but I had met this person on a music video that I was hired through a friend of mine to pull a favor and come up with some action design. It was a fan film video uh, of the Foot Clan from the Ninja Turtles, and he was one of the foot soldiers. And every gig this guy had for the next 10 years, his face was covered. All you saw was his eyes. And I gave him his first break. It was a lead role. And ironically, when I cast him, I was like, listen, this is the character you're going to play. And he's like, let me guess. I'm going to be a ninja. And all you see is my eyes. I was like, nope, you've got lines. We see your
Oh,
mouth move. We're going to see your face. No cover, nothing at all. You're like shirt and jeans. He's like, oh my God, thank you so much. Oh my God, that's great. I was like, yeah,
Nice.
there you go. And that was it. 10 years later. And then he keeps talking about how he was always there and how, he just started treating people that knew him since that time as enemies because he wanted to close that chapter and open it up with new people, new chapters, as if he was always up at the top. And I was like, man, well, I mean, when I started off and people are like, please remember me when you make it big, I was like, yes, absolutely, because you're going to remember when I sacrificed and struggled and, there was situations and triple jobs and all that kind of stuff. I need you as proof, living, talking, walking proof, right? So with someone like that, when it's almost like biting the hand that feeds you,
Mm,
guess where they are now? They're not really working too much, right?
mm.
So that would be one of the first people that comes to mind. No mention of names.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Hey, look at this one, Ed 7501. I live in Hong Kong. I wonder if JCVD still has a condo here. My friend ran into him on the subway pre-COVID. I'm pretty sure Van Damme. I know Van Damme actually still lives there. I mean, he lives in multiple places. He's got a house in City Valley, probably in Belgium. I know he had a place in Canada for a while. I'm pretty sure he still got the Hong Kong place.
Yeah, Hong
Funny
Kong, I think he
story.
stays in a hotel. He might
Oh,
he
does he
might
stay
have
in a
one of those.
hotel?
Yeah,
Well, he does
yeah,
go
one of
there quite
those
a bit.
long stay or long-term residents.
Okay, the director Ross Clarkson on Last Kumite, he's really close to Van Damme. I think Van Damme was actually his best man at Ross's wedding, from what I heard. But he shared some very interesting stories about Van Damme. I'm not going to share on here. But have you ever met Van Damme, by the way?
Yes, very briefly, and I was really upset because it was a time where I met him and there was no camera phones at the time.
Oh, really? Damn.
No.
The's no proof, man. It's like Frank
Kids,
Dukes and the
listen,
Kumite, man.
listen.
There's
With,
no
with
proof.
this
Damn it.
device right now, your life is different. You'll remember your baby steps, your first steps, first day at school. Frick, I met him.
Oh
It
yeah,
was
your
at
whole life is completely recorded
yeah, it was
nowadays,
at the
man.
gym
It's
in LA,
crazy.
actually.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. He was just working out. It was an early morning, maybe like 7, 8 a.m.
Oh,
He was
like
just
what at
bouncing.
the Venice Gold's
Yeah,
Gym?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay. I know he works
yeah,
out there a lot. That's cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Super quick. Actually, there's another time in Mongkok in Hong Kong.
Mhm.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He was by the Peninsula Hotel.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What about this one? Honest thoughts on Mr. Steven Seagal.
Ooh, you want the kid version of me or the adult version of me?
I want it both, dude. We want the real, like,
um, Listen, I didn't know what to expect when I was a kid. Obviously, a huge fan because
of
Under
course.
Siege and all that kind of craziness that was happening. I got to meet him through mutual friends that actually some of them you filmed with. In the last Kumite. But yeah, I got to meet him once. Humongous dude, humongous.
Oh yeah,
Like
sure.
he's like Optimus Prime in human form. But the martial arts, he's. I mean, I don't know about the action on film, but the martial arts, I've seen him really, really, really know his stuff. I've really seen him know his stuff. At least the stuff he demonstrated. I
Mhm.
can't go above and beyond in terms of, but it's very simple, very effective, very straight to the point. Um, at least from the demonstration that I witnessed, it was very, very technical. He knew what he was doing. Obviously, it's a lot of standing, and they come running at him and
Yeah,
deflection,
sure,
deflect,
sure.
deflect, deflect. But he had to know at least a thing or two, I would say, to know how to make it look real and have it really, really efficient. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I can attest to that for the most part because I didn't work with Steven Skull himself, but I did experience and work and get the demonstration with his most senior student, Elliot Freeman, and the way he can manipulate you with like just these like subtle little things for tension aikido. It's amazing, dude. I'm like, wow, he
Pressure
could
points.
control
Yeah.
someone, and I'm pretty strong, but
Yeah.
like, man, it was I don't want to say it's magical, but it's really damn impressive.
Yeah.
So, there's
And
one
don't forget
thing
his size. Once again, his size is a humongous advantage.
that
I mean,
helps with his
listen, it's
hands
a huge
being so
advantage. The
big
second
and
he grabs you,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, you're a ragdoll, right?
Oh
Remember
yeah,
that
for
scene
sure,
from
for sure.
Hulk and Loki where he just grabbed him and smashed him sideways like a bunch of times? That's equivalent.
And Elliot Freeman's not even close to Seagal's size. I
Yeah,
mean, he's a decent sized guy, but I can
yeah,
only imagine with Seagal, who would be higher skilled and a bigger guy physically, what
yeah.
he could do to somebody, man.
That's why I feel really bad if there was anyone fighting him in film that was like 5'5". Just go flying across.
Yeah, yeah. So it's there's a really funny interview with Michael Jai White, always doing amusing interviews with DJ Vlad. He was saying, I think it was titled like, "Oh, Steven Seagal does moves your dad can do." It's like his level of expertise though is just incredible. Like, yes, your dad can move his hand like this, your dad's not going to jump and do the splits like Van Damme. Your dad could do this, but just like if you even just watch Under Siege, the way his movements, like your dad can't do that, man. Like my dad, nobody's dad can do that. But I get where Michael Jai White's going. Like physically, yes, somebody could just move their arms like this, yes, but I don't know. For some reason, he likes to put Seagal down. It seems like
On the
in
spot.
interviews, you know. Which
Yeah.
those two guys, it's amusing. They're back and forth, to be honest. But here's one, Daryl Porter, Mr. Garcia. Who's the best martial artist you have worked with for talent and humbleness? Okay, best martial artist you've worked with.
Ooh, I would say there's a couple of people for in general outside of film. There's a grandmaster, indirect sifu of mine, and his name is Alex Kwok. He's a grandmaster. He's a judge, and believe it or not, he was actually one of the first. I would say candidates for Kung Fu: The Legend Continues.
Oh, really? Wow.
And yeah, so he's
Wow.
trained with all the Sifus of Jet Li and all these guys, Donnie Yen. He's familiar with the lineage and the
Yeah,
family, and
that's cool, man.
it's the Cascas's mom, right? Because they're all of that generation.
Mhm.
So he is insanely humble. He's 74, can still do a ton of stuff. If you see him, you would probably think he's in his 40s, mid 40s.
Wow.
Incredibly talented, incredibly skilled, super humble, very deadly. But I feel like most deadly people are very humble and quiet
Oh, sure. Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That's funny,
yeah.
man. Um, oh, here's a question. What do you like the most about the entertainment industry?
Uh, I would say it's a combination of self-discovery because you constantly get to challenge yourself, travel to different areas that could have a culture clash or something along those lines, but also you discover mini chips or mini documents or archived files sometimes and feelings of yourself in some of these imaginary scripts, right?
Interesting.
So it's really, really cool. It's way deeper than just here's lines, memorize it, go and just spit it out, right? That's one part. The second part is the fact that how quick you can influence people all around the world
Oh,
with
for sure.
one
Storytelling
simple
is so
medium
powerful,
platform.
man.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's the way it is. But that also brings me to the next point why action is huge, because some of the dialogue can be lost in translation.
Mhm.
But action, you could hit mute and still appreciate it,
Yeah.
regardless, right? So,
Okay, a follow-up question.
dun, 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 follow up.
What what do you like the least about the entertainment industry?
Uh, I would say some of the drama, some of the unnecessary drama that could
Mm.
happen, you know. And obviously, there's favorites. Obviously, there's certain things that happen behind the scenes, and sometimes people get cast not because of their talent. Let's just leave it at that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
true,
it's
man.
just yeah.
Producers, for example, who put money in films, "Oh, you have to put my mistress in this movie, right?" Even though she's not even an actress.
Oh man.
But,
Oh man.
you hear that story all the time.
Oh man. Lots of funny stories there.
Yeah. Oh, look at this comment. New Slide documentary coming to Netflix, like Arnie's one. Oh, that's cool, dude. I didn't even see the Arnold document. I think it was like a three-parter on Netflix. I heard it was really good. I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw
I'm waiting. I'm waiting to binge it. Maybe this week, the
that.
Arnie
Mhm.
one. But I did watch the Stallone family one. It was pretty cool.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, it was
here's a
pretty
question. Jaina Satzer. I was actually going to ask this myself. Do
dun,
you have a
dun,
preference
dun.
of
Let's see.
acting versus directing? And is there a reason why you prefer one over the other?
You know what? I would say the performer side of me is innately what I want to do, and I love directing. I love as well, but I'll break it down this way. When times were slow for me as an actor, I had a producer come up to me and say, "Listen, I want you to treat it this way. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You could look at it as acting is the door to your house, which you
Hmm.
prefer going through this way. And then directing, writing, everything else behind the camera that you do could be the windows, just in case you lock yourself out. So that's kind of the way I look at it. But both of them have helped me become way more complete. Some of the stuff I do as an actor have made me much better as a director, and a lot of this stuff behind the camera, you get to understand why even sometimes it could take so long to set up something where you're an actor in front of the camera, you're like, oh my God, what's taking so long? What's so hard about the lights? What's so hard about the focus? Yeah, I came back. Look, I'm still in the same spot. No, you moved a milli fraction of an inch to the side. That's it. You got to reset the focus, right? So both of them have really assisted in making it like a really complete whole package.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you ever directed yourself as an actor, like on a project?
Yep.
You did. You pulled the
Yep.
Stallone thing.
Yep. So that's yeah, maybe four times when times were rough at the beginning. So the first one was an '80s homage movie called The Briefcase that I wrote, directed, and starred in. Actually, technically, that would be my second. The first one was about it was a true story, and that was my first time officially behind the camera, called The Dark Side. And it was about a huge corruption thing that happened in the martial arts world. And that's before social media became a thing, before people got on their phones as much as they are now. And it was a debate between writing a blog or making a short film. So I wrote it in a short film format. One thing led to the next. It became a full blown feature. So that's a massive nosedive for someone where this was my first official experience behind the camera. So moving to the next one, the briefcase, it was a short, it was about 30 minutes, super easy compared to the other 60-minute one. And then I had another one where I went to battle in 2014 for females in film. It was a female assassin short film that you may have seen stuff about on social media. Scarlett Johansson wanted to get on board. It was super awesome. That one I also starred and directed. And then First Bust, an action buddy cop movie that we shot in a span of 8 hours during a hurricane for an award that I was up for in LA.
Now
So
going
four
back
times,
to
four
the
official
yeah, no,
times.
that's cool, man. Going back to the female assassin that
Uh
Scarlett
oh.
was potentially interested. So, are you basically making these shorts with the hope that that's the concept, and then you could turn these into feature films? Is that like the main goal, or?
Yeah. So I mean, the first one, it was more an educational thing. It was like, listen, as a martial artist, and with the blowing up of UFC and Pride at the time, I was like, it's I feel like it's something as a martial arts teacher, I got to warn the parents that this is something that could happen. So
Mhm.
beware. So the first one was almost a warning, no real intention behind it. Like, oh, this is a proof of concept and I hope to fund it. No, that wasn't the case. Even though we had UFC come in and sponsor, and
Oh wow.
it blew up, but it was just super transparent. It was like, this is who it is, and this is who I am and my experience, and let it go.
Mhm.
The second one, we shot it for the sake of raising funds for Sick Kids Hospital.
Okay.
And also, a friend of mine who was shifting from modeling to acting needed footage, and she saw the stuff from the first movie, and she's like, "Can you please help me with demo reel footage?" And I was like, "Sure." Funny story, she couldn't end up making it, so we had to recast her character, and the damn thing was written for her. And then the third
Interesting.
one was two of my personal favorite heroes is my mom and my grandma. So females, I was like, listen, why don't we put the females in the forefront? And it was a combination of female assassins or a female version of Rambo. And I was like, are we going to call it Rambinia, Rambino? We're not 100% sure. Maybe we'll get Sly on that. But yeah, literally just wrote it real quick. Each assassin had her own set skills. One was good with cars, computers, guns. One was like a dancer that could like use her body as a weapon. Really cool stuff. And it was to help raise funds for missing children society. And I was filming in Malaysia at that time, and that's a movie that I filmed with Vincent Ward from The Walking Dead, Brandon Routh, who is former Superman,
Oh,
former
Superman, dude. Yeah,
Superman
sure.
now.
Yeah.
And I sat down with the producer, and he's like, "Listen, what are you working on?" And I was like, "Well, I just shot this short film and it's doing really good. We raised enough funds. We sold 2 theaters downtown. He's like, cool. You have something I could see. He was like, yeah. So he gets on the phone. We're sitting at Starbucks in Malaysia and he gives me a call. He's like, hey, babe, what's going on? Oh, listen, I want you to talk to this guy. And he gives me the phone. I was like, hey. She's like, hey, how are you? Scarlett Johansson. I was like, what? Right?
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, okay, tell her what the concept is about. So I did. And she's like, oh my God, I love it. That sounds so cool. But I got to talk to my agent just to clear everything. And she
Hmm.
did, or we did. And her agent turned it down because she said, listen, we've got a plan for her. She's going to have her standalone spin off as Black Widow, where she's
Where
an
she plays
assassin
the
spy.
assassin anyway. Sure.
So we're
Okay.
like, oh man, so that didn't come through.
Hmm.
But yeah, so there's still plans to kind of revamp that, have it as a standalone movie or have it as an episodic. I think either way it would be really really cool.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Here's a question. Hard rock soloing. If you were to choose between music industry or the film industry, which one would you choose? So, are you even a musician though?
Yes.
Oh, you are.
I
See, I didn't
play.
even know that about you.
Yeah. I play probably 6 different instruments that I own,
Really?
and I do have a musical ear. So even if I'm not playing an instrument the correct way, I would still be able to strike that note. Music industry is slightly different because the audience is a little different. The entertainment factor is a little different. Like I directed a music video for the World Cup in 2014,
Wow.
and right there and then when we were sitting and planning, it's the purpose of this video and the outlet it's going to be displayed on is very different than the outlet where it's kind of like the business side of it is also
Mhm.
really different too when you set it up.
Hmm. Interesting.
Usually shorter day shoots as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a question. Do you think Scott Adkins will now get the bigger breaks he deserves having smashed John Wick 4, or will he do a spin-off with his character Killa like he did with Boyka? You ever meet or work with Scott Adkins, by the way?
No, I have not. Like I know some of his tight buddies. I know guys that do like his action choreo. I know one of his good friends, Silvio, right? Silvio Simek.
Oh yeah, sure.
But we've never met in person. We've never worked together yet. I would love to. I think it'd be really, really awesome. But I think one of the biggest things with Scott is his team just have to present him the right way.
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing. I feel like if they could package him and sell him as an ex action star and show the value he could bring, I think that would be really, really good. And he's right on the cusp right now where he's kind of, we're going to say mid 40s, right? So
Sure.
he will start to slow down a bit with some of the action. He will probably want to get some doubles in to take some of the heavier falls and stuff. So this is a time for him to really make it or break it.
Hmm.
But I love
For
Scott.
sure.
I love his action. He's such a talented, explosive martial artist and athlete, and just phenomenal all around. Like when he came out, and you're like, oh my god, who is that? And
Yeah,
all
he
the
raised the
Undisputed
bar. He
series.
raised the bar with Undisputed too, no question.
Yeah. And going back to like, I remember the first time I saw him, he got to fight Jackie Chan, right?
The medallion, I think.
Exactly. And I was like, damn, those kicks are clean, right? And it's yeah. And then afterwards, you see him in Undisputed as Boyka, yeah, most complete fighter in the world. You're like,
Hmm.
yeah, okay, cool. He sold it. Yeah, let's go. We're all Team Boyka. Go for it, right? Yeah, so it was really really cool. So I really really want to see Scott get the. It's not even clout. I really want him to get the opportunities that could put him up there. He did such an
Like
amazing
bigger
job
budget
in
movie, like
in in, in JJ's debut, right? Day Shift,
hmm.
right?
Oh yeah, yeah, he was good in that with the
Yeah,
whoever
yeah,
dude that played his brother in there. Sure.
yeah. They
Yeah, that
were
was
what, the Zario brothers or something like that. Yeah, it
yeah,
was really really fun. Yeah.
yeah. I could see that being a spinoff, man. With those guys. Hey, here's a cool question. Who's your favorite action movie director of all time?
Probably a combination of Yun Wu Ping and I would say Sly.
I was gonna say Sly, man. It's like, oh, that guy is so good. He just understands like men. he's like the ultimate man's man. He could
You
just
know,
speak to them through those Rocky films and the
you,
Rambo films.
you know what it is when
Mm,
he writes and he films, he understands how to capture a certain essence. And he gives you that beat to digest it. So it doesn't happen so fast that you're on from like one feeling to the next before that feeling actually sits with you,
mm.
right? If you're supposed to feel sad, he shoots it for certain beats. Like he's got it down to a science. He's like, boom, boom. You feel sad, cool. Let's see what happens about that. You feel hurt, boom, boom. You feel revenge or anger, boom, 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 and moving. So you absorb it fully before you move on. He's got that down to a T.
He's a genius, man. He is
Yeah,
a genius, absolute
yeah,
genius.
yeah.
Here's a cool question. Do you have any advice for someone who wants to be a filmmaker and or actor? I would add that on there. Like, if you
Dun,
want.
dun, dun.
Hey, the
All right.
perfect time to plug your book. Yeah, talk about your book, man, because it's already linked in the description. Someone could pick it up very easily from Amazon.com.
Absolutely. So, I mean, before I even talk about the book, seriously, now you are in such a blessed time. You've got this device right here that can shoot and edit and give you filters, and give you pre-made audio, and with the touch of a button, you can upload it for the entire world to see.
Sure.
And that's how you're going to get better. Just go out there and shoot something. And I
Mm.
promise you, you're going to learn way more than any film school, anything else that's out there. Granted, yes, it could give you a certain direction, but the best teachers to take action. Just go out there and do it. Shoot it. Bring it back. Play it. You're going to see, oh man, well, what happened to my lights? Or wow, my hand was really shaky. Or I should have shot it a little lower, a little higher. The best teacher. Just take your phone, forget all the camera, forget all the gear, forget all the fancy stuff you see out there right now. Some of these things shoot up to 4K, which is insane,
Yeah.
right? Just go out there, shoot something, edit it, see how you can improve on that. And here's a little secret sauce that I'm going to give you that I include in this book of mine. If you want to shoot something, stick with three E's, one of three E's, or combine them. Either shoot something to entertain, shoot
Mm.
something to educate, or shoot something to stir some kind of emotion.
Mm.
If you've got one or more of those E's in your project or whatever it is you shoot, then you're onto something great. That's how you could go viral. That's how people could share your stuff. That's how people could start following you. That's how you could find your niche or your niche and kind of grow from there.
Basically, you got to get noticed, you know, like that happened to me, man. That's why I'm in the last Kumite. That's why I'm gonna be in this Rene Perez film. Like I've built something and got attention. And then obviously there's a lot of work and developing relationships, networking, all that, but basically I got myself attention and the right people see
So
me
you're
and
telling me you and I are the same, and basically we should go and film Double Impact. Is that what it is?
I'll sign that right now, dude. Yeah, we'll bring it back, man. I'll call Sean Letters right now. Hey, dude, we're
Let's
gonna do
go.
a
Let's
double
go.
impact
Dude,
reboot.
I'm so down. You got to make it happen, man. But yes, it's quite the journey, and I swear a lot of times you just got to get out of your head. So whether you're a performer, whether you're an actor, just get out of your head, forget all the naysayers and all the little voices. It's something you're really passionate about. Yes, you will face some rejection and hiccups and bumps, but that passion is the fuel that's going to keep you going forward.
Oh
So
yeah,
there's a book
and get the
linked below
book
to you.
for more info. But of course, you need thick skin because nobody likes to be rejected just with anything, man. Job interview, date, asking a girl, anything. Nobody likes rejection, but you are guaranteed to get a lot of rejection if you try to pursue the acting thing, especially, man. It's just like, dude, you're up against 100 other people, and there's so many variables in place.
And
You
you're
gotta work
putting
with it
yourself on a
to get that.
platform. You're putting yourself on even when you book the job, you're putting yourself on a platform. So there's the battle behind the scenes, and there's you on screen the day of, or on a streaming platform, or massive red carpet, 60 inch or 60 foot freaking screen, and people are watching you, and they're all gonna say, "Oh my god, why does he look like this? Oh my god, why did he kick this way? Or why did he do this?" That's the life you've chosen, right?
Let me ask you this, man, because you've
Ask me, man.
obviously been in a lot of projects. Can you even just enjoy it as an audience guy, or are you like overly self-critical with what you're doing on screen, like analyzing, and studying and
I've learned to be able to shut that off. I really have.
okay.
I really have. Unless you ask me, I feel like it's kind of backseat driving in a way, where if you're there to enjoy it, you're there to enjoy it. But if someone's like, hey, so what do you think? It's like, you really want me to answer that? Okay, cool. Well, notepad, cool. Well, your kick was a little this, your foot was a little off angle, da, 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 and here's a list. And they're like, okay, like you asked, you don't want the answer, don't ask me. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
It's funny. I asked that exact same question to Kurt McKinney, of course, from No Retreat, No Surrender, because he's in The Last Kumite along with a lot of these other legends. And I was actually, working with him doing scenes, and he was even kind of giving me some tips. He's been in the acting world forever, so I'm just soaking everything up like a sponge, man. And I asked him that question, and he's like, it's kind of hard for me just to enjoy it for what it is because of course I'm overly self-critical with what I'm doing, so it's hard to take myself out of that and just enjoy the movie for what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I got to watch it a few times, and the second time around, or the first time, it depends. Like the first one's going to be the critical version, or the second one's going to be the critical version. So I watch it once for what it is, as if I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. And then the second time, I'm like, okay, well, better. Oh my God, what was I thinking? That should have been a little tighter to show the intensity on the face instead of being back here. And definitely, I mean, it's got to be the way it is. I feel though, the one thing that someone real smart told me was, listen, don't go back and try and change something that's already shot and filmed and out, because there's times where, especially with the earlier projects, you're like, let me bring it back now. My editing's better now. You're like, nope, just let it be the way it is.
Hmm.
As a 1.0, and then you've got your 4, 5, 6, 7.0s. It shows a nice contrast. So yeah.
Okay. Hey, here's a question. Let's see. Yeah, this is a question. Oh, it'd be interesting to get your opinion on this. What has happened to Tony Jaa since he blew up on Ong Bak? And then
He's
it
in
said,
Expendables. Keep an eye
yeah,
open.
so he's still doing stuff, but like I think where this guy's going, he was like the lead in a theatrical movie and kind of taken, like what Arnold, not Arnold, but what Van Damme and Skull was doing. It's kind of like him and Jason Statham, and they were like the leads in these like theatrical release movies. But it kind of like he did a couple of those and just kind of fell off for whatever reason. But Jason Statham kept going to the theater as the lead, right?
Yeah, I personally feel like it's with him, and even with Jet Li. If you go back, like he had Romeo Must Die, Kiss of Death, or Kiss of the Dragon.
Oh,
He
I
had
like
a
that was
bunch,
good. Yeah.
right? He had a bunch that you're like, okay, cool, and it was almost like Jackie or Jet Li, Jackie or Jet Li, the one. There was so many things coming out. Even War with him and Statham, right? But when you look at Jet Li and Tony Jaa, there was a huge language barrier. It was a
Hmm.
huge language barrier that they did not address 100%. Jackie had a language barrier too, and then he worked on his English, and it almost became a part of his character. Just like with Arnie, he had that thick accent. Jackie had his, I don't want any trouble. Okay, like he started having the very Jackie trademark dialogue, right?
Sure.
Where you expected before he was gonna fight, he didn't want any trouble. It became one-liners, it became memes, it became everything that was part of his brand. Arnie,
Mhm.
the same thing, right? His cheesy one-liners, right?
Yeah, sure.
Freeze, right? Like what just happened, right? When he was what, Doctor Free and Mister Freeze, right?
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of things that package you and qualify you as a lead person.
Mm.
Statham had no problem with his English. In fact, people found it to be very cool when he was down here and he was a little bit like and that's just who he became. He became the transporter in every movie. He brought that vibe with him in every movie, and that was great. The red that can fight, and it was really really cool, right? So if you go back and you see Tony Jaa, it was very action oriented,
Mhm.
and Jet Li was very action oriented, which is great, but they needed at times to be able to speak.
Mm.
That's the
That's a good
biggest thing.
point, man. Yeah, with Jason Statham, it worked because I know in general a lot of people in America don't really care for the English accent. It seems weird, but he's got like a cool one. Like I don't know how
Yeah,
many
yeah,
different like English accents there are, but his really works for like the
yep,
American audience. Whereas a lot
yeah,
of other guys not so much.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, sweet.
absolutely. And he packaged it real well. That's once again some of the stuff that I'm saying. Like Scott has some of his, like they could pull off probably the same accent if they just bring it down a certain level. But how they packaged Statham was really, really smart, right? I wish the same thing happened for Scott, where they
Mm.
packaged him, you're a lead, this is who you are, you're the cool dude. He had the physique, he had the skill, he had everything, right? Like he was more fancy and flashy with his martial arts than Statham is,
Oh, sure, sure.
right? But it's all about the packaging. It's how you package stuff.
I also think, and he kind of brought this up himself when I interviewed him. I mean, because he's been doing movies for like 20 years. It's, I think because he's done so many of like the lower budget straight to video, that's just how people see him. And in some ways, almost like a glorified stuntman. So when he gets a bigger role, I mean, he did great in John Wick 4. Great performance, good lines, good acting. A little less degree in Expendables. But when they use him in Marvel movies, it's like he's like a glorified stunt guy. So it's almost like I think because it's even like if you go back to the 80s and 90s, you take any of these guys like say Lorenzo Lamas, amazing on Renegade, did a string of straight to video movies. It's really hard to break out of that and then just you did like a dozen straight to video movies, all of a sudden you're going to be in like a theater movie. It's almost like you get stuck, right?
But that's the packaging. That's exactly what I'm talking about, right? That's exactly it. Is whoever is on your team can package you a certain way, right? They did the same thing with Dwayne Johnson. They did the same thing with Cena and Vin Diesel, where it was like action guy. And then once he stood on that platform, they're like, oh, well, you could do a family movie. You're a dad or you're a babysitter. It's literally they just gotta help you carve that path and navigate it. That's why you have a team, right?
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Because Van Damme could have stayed as a bad guy the whole time. He did his splits. He came in and he was a hired gun European dude,
Mhm.
like when he first popped up. But then someone believed in him. Plus, he had the grind and the hustle. And he kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then they're like, "Oh, cool. All right, let's put this guy in the forefront." Scott had that. He really did.
Yeah, it was really Lionheart, and Sheldon talked about that. That's why Universal picked it up and distributed it, even though it was like a smaller Imperial Entertainment movie. But they seen he can actually act and hold the audience when he was like just. It wasn't when he was fighting in the movie. It was like when he was interacting with the niece when he met her for the first time. They're like, okay, this guy could actually be a leading man. He's kind of got
Mm-hmm.
the drama and the
Mm-hmm.
dialogue and good interaction with the young actress. So hey, let
That's a
me
lot of
ask.
questions coming in. That's great.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's always fun with the lives. Let me ask you this, man. What's like if you want to share? Some people like to put it out there. Some people like to hold it, and not really put it out there. Like, what's your ultimate goal? Like, as a filmmaker, as an actor, like, what do you like trying to ultimately achieve? Whether it's like the next 3 or 5 years, like, where do you see yourself, and like, what are you working ultimately towards?
I think ultimately, in the next 3 to 5 years, I would want to be the next action hero,
Okay.
true action hero,
Mhm.
not one with a cape and CGI,
Yeah.
even though I won't say no.
Hey, man,
But,
I'm sure that check is too
but,
big to say no.
but honestly, uh, this generation needs one. They really do.
Oh,
And
for
I mean,
sure.
yes, I get it, the wokeness and the cancel culture and all the stuff that's happening out there. But listen, you don't like it, cool, move on with your life. You don't have
Mhm,
to walk into every store, but they're there, right? You don't have to pick up every ice cream flavor. You skip the ones you don't like, and that's just the way it is,
mhm.
right? But this is something that literally we've had a massive gap, and we spoke about this earlier. We're like, listen, we've got the '80s heroes, literally still making the same movies now.
Yeah.
But here's a sad thing. Here's a sad thing. At some point, they're going to hang their gloves. They're going to hang their capes. They're going to hang their guns, and they're not going to be here. So who fills this void?
Mhm.
Personally, I thought it would be the Jaws, the Stathams, and you know Atkins. That gap is still there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
It
I'd
really
say
is.
them is probably the closest one that kinda like he's the guy doing the movies closest to that are getting the bigger budgets, that are going to
Yes,
theater like, he's like,
yes, but what's working against him is age.
Yeah, he's got to be like 50 now, right?
You see what I mean? Like that's the crazy thing.
Mm.
You and I, we're 40s. We
Mm-hmm.
don't look it, right? I
No,
mean,
I don't feel it
40 on
either,
paper,
man.
people look at that and they're like, he must rub his knees every morning. And then they see me flip and they're like, 40? No, show me ID, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I know I could still push my body. I know I've got that it factor. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing that when I sat down with Sly and Jackie, it's one of the biggest things that you start to see. They want to pass the torch. Not yet. I want to, but not yet. No, one more, one more, one more. Like Sly in his, pun intended, is like one more round, right? And with Jackie's like, you see it now. You see it. You see the pain. You see the body's been beat up time and
Sure.
time and time and time again. You see it. You really do, right?
It's got to be hard to give that up. And I mean, Sly is literally still on top. When you look at Tulsa King, that show had more Paramount Plus subscriptions than ever. So he's still on top. That's huge. It is great, man. But I think just in general, people always want to feel like they're
Still
progressing
young.
in some way. That they want to progress, not degress. So
Yeah, yeah.
it
But you're
you
gonna
know
see
it,
that they both moved more drama stuff, right?
mhm,
Like Jackie's like, I want to, less action. I still love the action, absolutely. So, but I want it more dramatic. Like
yeah,
you'll see a bunch of really, really cool switches from The Foreigner and even the new police story prior to that. You're gonna see, Shaolin. You're gonna see a bunch where he was really showcasing he can act,
sure.
right? Versus just action and action and action. Sly, same thing. You see with Tulsa King, beautiful stuff. Beautiful, beautiful stuff,
Yeah,
right?
for sure, man. But as far as being the next action hero, like I do think the gap will, there has to be new people. I mean, I talk to and know quite a few people that have similar goals to us, so we'll see what happens in the next 3 to 5 years. But it does seem like the Marvel films are kind of on their way out, and I think this is the right time. I always talk about things being cyclical, just in
Yeah,
general,
yeah.
you know.
I feel you know what it is. Like if we were to come up with a bunch of new movies where it was more culture based, like you've got tons of heroes and myths and legends of characters from China or Mongolia or India or Egypt. I think that would be a really cool take on heroes
Mm.
instead of it just being the typical ones, Spideys and Iron Mans and Superman and Batman, all that kind of stuff, right? We know that, but I think it would draw a very different audience and maybe even inspire them. I feel like one of the biggest things we're missing now in terms of character and audience is that we're not really connecting. You
Mm.
know, it's a connection factor. It's like really weak Wi-Fi.
Well, like when I interviewed Bay Logan, might have been like 2 years ago. I'm gonna bring him back on a live, by the way. I already discussed that with him. But his whole thing was like, okay, the guy or girl or whoever that's gonna break out, they're gonna need the whole vision. They're gonna either write the script themselves or they're gonna have somebody write it for them. They're gonna have their own unique style. They're gonna understand how they want the choreography. They're gonna understand how they want the music. It's gonna be like, obviously film is collaborative, but they're gonna have like everything in their head. And it's gotta be the right character, man. Like you talk about Rambo, you talk about Rocky. The character is so important. So the person who breaks out, in my opinion, will be, I don't want to just call it luck, but they'll be lucky enough to play the right character and it'll be a perfect fit for them. Because there's nobody else that could have played Rocky like Stallone or Rambo. So it'll be, the right guy playing the right character. Because there's a lot of talented guys out there. Like you
Yeah,
could very easily be the next big action star in 3 to 5 years. I mean, you got the look, you got the skills. If people haven't seen your martial arts, just go to your Instagram. Like that's, and you can act. So that the thing is, will you get to play the right character? That'll be the determining factor, in my opinion. For these other people I talk to, myself included, it's like if it's the right character, it'll work, and if not, then I mean, you'll still be making movies, but will you be the big guy? It's got to be the right character, man. So, here's a question. Um, I don't know if you've been watching these string of videos on the channel, but I'm promoting this, and there's big news coming. I can't give it away, but big news coming. Who wins the upcoming fight? Tong Po, aka Muhammad Kisi, or Don the Dragon Wilson?
Ooh. So I would say let's get tickets and go and watch.
Dude, like
I would go.
I'm
I would
heavily
go.
involved. I'll get you there. You could sit ringside with
I
me.
would go in a heartbeat. Now, who do you think is going to win,
Who do you
Zuckerberg
think's gonna win?
or Musk?
Okay. So you're talking about like Elon Musk
No
or
comment.
Zuckerberg? I think
We'll see. We'll
Elon
see. They're
Musk
talking about
wins.
having it in the Coliseum, so you
Yeah,
got to get tickets.
it's crazy, ridiculous. No, but serious though. So with Don Wilson and Tong Po, like I met them both in person. I trained. I even sparred with Don Wilson. I moved with him, man, and nobody would believe the dude's 68 years old. You know, he's still quick.
Yep, he's very
Obviously, you
sharp.
know, he's just on autopilot because he had all those fights. You know, 11-time world kickboxing champion, and then Muhammad Kisi. Like his hands, man. Like it'll be a kickboxing match. It'll have to be, but his hands are quick, man, and he's got intensity. So I didn't end up sparring with him, but you know, I got a feel for him having met him in person. But like realistically, who do you think wins that exhibition match?
You know what? I think it would be a really interesting fight to see because you have someone that's really, really good with a close range, really quick, and you have somebody else who's really good with also long range. So it's literally like you've got a spear and you've got a dagger. So I think it's going to be more of a chess game because both of them are at a point where they will snipe each other and not necessarily go rapid fire. So
Mm.
I think it's a matter of who gets in that zone where they can really highlight their skill. Because you see one guy is really very quick, right? It's kind of like when you fight a grappler versus a striker. Striker could be really efficient, but you get in a certain and they grab a hold of that limb. It could be pretty entertaining to see you get out, right?
Yeah,
Don,
yeah. The way I see
Don
it
has
play
got
out.
he's got his kicks, he's got his side kicks, he's got his
Oh, the sidekicks. He
reverse
landed
kicks and all
a
that
good
kind
one
of
on me
stuff.
actually.
Oh yeah, he can keep you in a little bit of zone. But if Kisi moves out of the way a little, like a quick and gets in behind one of the kicks or a nice deke or duck and just slip and get in, it's really, really interesting. It's always really, I feel like this is what true MMA misses now. True mixed martial arts when it was like, yeah, karate versus boxing versus wrestling versus
Those were
capoeira
fun
versus Muay
matchups,
Thai
man.
versus kick. Now it's like everyone's just standing the same. Yes, they're all
Mm.
throwing a combination or mixed martial arts, but it no longer has that team boxing, team karate, and go. You're like, oh,
That was
who's gonna
fun
win?
back then, dude. That
Oh
was
yeah,
fun.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
You'll see that, by the way. All of you guys will see that in the last Kumite because we do have specific styles. Like there's an amazing capoeira guy. You'll respect the hell out of that being a capoeira dude yourself. There's like a great drunken kung fu dude.
Nice.
There's all kinds of cool fighters in the movie, man. It's style against style, you know, because it is a throwback to the 80s and 90s, of course. But as far as like Muhammad Kisi and Don Wilson, I think the longer the fight is, obviously Don's going to have the advantage because he's a slow starter in general. And if Muhammad Kisi, for whatever reason, if he could take him out in 3 rounds, then you know, and he's very aggressive, it'll work in his favor. I don't necessarily think that'll happen, but you never know, man, because the guy hits hard. You know, the
But
guy's
that's what
got
I'm
power.
saying, right? Like that's exactly what I'm saying is the fact that if you have a slow starter and someone ends up optimizing on that chance, it's lights out, right? But at
Hmm.
the same time, if he can just be smart enough and kind of test him and just keep him outside on the outside circle, just keep him, at the long range, you gotta get in to use your short range weapons. It would be really, really interesting to see.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Um, oh, here, Gareth Smith. Bollywood does that already, but getting the right distribution is the issue. So I wonder if he's referring to having the right team, putting you together and out there. But then I guess maybe the distribution could be an issue for somebody not blowing up, perhaps.
That's closest we got was Fast and Furious.
Oh,
Well,
yes,
we
you want
got
to read
Fast and
this one,
Furious.
oh, I'm just kind of scrolling through more here.
Yeah, these are good. Keep them coming.
Let's see. What is this? John Wick is one of the few modern film characters that I like. Also, Tom Cruise playing Ethan Hunt through the years in Mission Impossible, and bringing back his Top Gun character was cool. Oh, dude, the new Top Gun was incredible, man. I love that movie.
He's another madman doing all his own stunts, and I love it.
Yeah, you got to respect that, man. Got to respect that. Let's see what else we got. There's any last minute questions in here? Okay, well, actually, oh, hang on. Let me just see if we miss anything. Would you guys recommend starting Muay Thai at 41 years old?
You want to take that one? I could.
Look,
Okay.
age is just a number. There's a huge difference between chronological age and biological age, man. Like I literally still feel like I'm in college, you know. Other people are a wreck at 30. So when you say 41, like how do you feel at 41? If you feel like crap when you get out of the bed and you got all these aches and stuff, you okay, so get your lifestyle in order, do a lot of mobility work, a lot of stretching, get your diet and fitness in order, and then look into more of a harder style like Muay Thai, but not if you're all beat the hell up already and out of shape. So that's my advice. It doesn't matter the age. You might be in phenomenal health and shape at 41, or you might just be a wreck, dude. So get
Yeah.
your body in
Yeah.
order first.
Yeah, I mean, 41, it's really subjective. Don't put an age as a question mark. I would say just go out to the gym, give it a shot. And Muay Thai is really subjective because you have different Muay Thai gyms at different intensities. That goes all across the martial arts board. So I would say just get out to the gym, see how you like it. And if you're dedicated, dedicated, and you're also going to improve. Your flexibility is going to get better, your shape's going to get better, your balance is going to get better, and really make that commitment before you go for it. And don't look at the end goal, right? Because you're going to see a lot of Muay Thai fighters that have been doing it since they're 8, and then you're going to see yourself at 41 just starting. You're going to compare. You're going to get discouraged. Forget all that. Go be a better version of you every time you're walking outside of that gym. That's the most important thing for you. The change is going to happen. Enjoy the journey.
100%, man. You got to enjoy the journey because that's all we have, and nobody knows when that journey ends, man. So you have to enjoy the journey. Here's a cool question, Daryl Porter. What's your go-to 80s movie?
Ah, depends on the mood. Depends on the mood. But I would say definitely one of my most favorite movies out there is Police Story.
Okay, Jackie, of course, Jackie Chan.
Yeah, there's that, and then if you go, there's some of the Van Damme movies, Bloodsport for
Oh,
sure. You've got Rambo, and you've got Terminator for sure, for sure.
man, there's just something about the 80s, man. Like even the
Yep,
music, right? Like it's just
it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I think a lot of things peaked. Like with like you're never gonna have bands like AC/DC or Metallica, and even a lot of those like pop bands were incredible. I love new wave. I know a lot of people love new wave who watch this channel. And then all those movies, man, Indiana Jones, Terminator, Rambo, they all
Oh yeah,
came out
oh
in the
yeah,
80s. It's
way,
insane.
yeah, way, way, way cool. Three Ninjas, my favorite film.
Oh,
You know
you
what? That's I feel like the '90s, mid '90s is where they started experimenting with. Okay, the theme is ninjas, cool. Everything is ninja. Beverly Hills Ninja, Three Ninjas, Two Ninjas, Double Ninja, ninjas and beavers. I don't know. You've got all kinds of like
yeah, they really went all out with
it's
ninjas, man.
success formula. Cool. Everything's gonna have that, right?
Hmm.
There's anything about King of the
Oh,
Castles
let's
Resistance.
see.
There's something I still watch. Goonies,
Embarrassingly, I still watch
awesome.
the Goonies. The Goonies is amazing, dude.
Great. First martial arts film you ever saw. Your favorite and last one you saw for both. I'd say
You
one
want to
of my
answer this
first
one
ones.
first?
Yeah, I would say one of my first ones that I saw was uh, accidentally because it wasn't appropriate. Chinese Connection, and that
Okay.
was one of right. That was Bruce Lee's movie, right?
Mhm.
And then after that, I started binging the Bruce Lee movies, and very shortly after that, I saw Master with Cracked Fingers. And that was really really cool too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first one I ever saw, this would have been like probably when it came out was No Retreat, No Surrender. And
Oh
really
yeah,
the only thing I remember about it was Kurt McKinney doing that backflip. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then later I found that when I didn't even know who Van Damme was, didn't know anything about it. But then later in the 90s, watching Bloodsport, all this kind of revisiting, oh, he was the bad guy in No Retreat, No Surrender. So now I usually watch it because of Van Damme.
yeah,
I like the beginning and the end. Like Kurt McKinney's great. And it's very interesting to see. I don't want to give too much away, but you guys are going to be very impressed with what he does in the last Kumite. So he could still do it 40 years later, man. There might even
yeah,
be some
yeah,
throwbacks, not to give anything away. Some
yeah. Some of that
Van
stuff
Damme
honestly
throwbacks.
doesn't leave. You might instead of doing like 10, you might have one in the tank.
He's still actually in
right?
really good shape, dude. I posted a picture. Guys, follow my Instagram too, Real Viking Samurai. You'll see pictures with me and Billy Blanks and Cynthia Rothrock and Kurt McKinney. Kurt McKinney's still in really good shape. You guys will
Into
you
the
guys will
Dragon,
see.
great movie.
Oh, thoughts on Best of the Best movies?
Oh, Best of the Best that was something where we were competing at the time, and that was our hype up movie. You know how you had a hype up
Oh
track?
yeah, sure,
That was
sure.
our hype up movie. We'd see the Brotherhood, we'd see, training montage, and we'd just like and we go up there, and we also kind of drew that good sportsmanship aspect of it. I think a lot of the movies had that. Even Karate Kid at the time had that as
For
well.
for sure. What I love
See,
about
I
like
feel 80s movies, each one of them had a training montage. That was one of the
and
best.
with great soundtracks, with
Yeah,
great
yeah,
scores. So
yeah.
Best of the Best. One thing that I love about that film, and I'll tell you why Philip Ree is a genius, because I even spoke to the casting director, James Tarzia, and he said from day one, Philip Ree wanted to surround himself with great actors. Like the fights in Best of the Best are great, especially with him and his brother. Some of the cleanest, sharpest kicks you've ever seen. But the drama, man, Eric Roberts, James Earl Jones, Chris Penn, like he wanted to surround himself with real actors, and that's why even to this day it's like in the top 20 sports dramas of all time from Sports Illustrated, not just like karate martial art movie, like sports dramas. It's great,
It's
man.
crazy. Good
That's great.
times. Good times. You see how excited we get when we talk about them.
It's hard not to, man. But of course, us growing up with these movies, us being inspired, you were competing at the time, so that adds that extra layer, of importance to you and your history with the martial arts. And yeah, they don't make them like they used to, which is one reason I made this channel talking about making the 80s and 90s great again.
It's beauty. Beauty.
Yeah.
Best of the best. Yeah.
And just to wrap things up, let's see if we get anybody want to throw in one last question. We'll wrap everything up. This guy
Dun,
said Best of
dun,
the Best 2 is great
dun.
as well, which I agree. Best of the Best 2 is great. That was a fun one. All right. If you guys got no more questions, make sure to check the links. You could get the books. You could check out, Taz's Instagram, follow him, and you'll see what a great martial artist he is. And yeah, you got any last words, Taz?
I think I saw my question is dot dot dot. Someone asked the question. This is for VS. We are taking okay, what movies we love. There are any movies that missed the mark for you?
Oh, movies that missed the mark. Well, I'd say 90% of the Van Damme movies from 2000 on. But there was that 10% that actually didn't, in my opinion. I'd say probably more than 90% of Seagal movies from 2000 on, dude. It's sad. It's
I would
sad.
say there was what was it, part two, Kickboxer two or something like that, or three?
Oh, yeah, with Muhammad Kisi. And
Yeah,
I'm
and they
going to
had
talk
Messi
all
Ahmed
about that
Santo,
with him in the
right?
future. One thing I'll say before you talk about it is the main reason he did that movie, he did not like the script. He didn't, who's the main guy in that? Who's the main guy that was in Kickboxer 2? Sasha
I,
Mitchell. He wasn't even a martial artist at the time. So Muhammad had a couple of, he said he's a nice guy. He liked him, but not a martial artist. Couldn't really do the fights. Benny the Jet actually doubled him, funny enough, even though he's so much smaller. But Muhammad Kisi basically said he did Kickboxer 2 because he needed and wanted his credit. Because if you remember the original Kickboxer, Chong Po was credited as himself. There's a long story behind that, but Muhammad, like, I need my damn credit.
yeah.
Anyway, what were you going to say about Kickboxer 2?
No, no, no. I mean, obviously, any sequel that comes out after a first really good one, it's you're a little harsher and you compare it with the first one. So I think it would have been okay had they just left the first one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Even with like Bloodsport, now Bloodsport 2 was okay because it did go to the theater, had decent production values. You got, Donald Gibb back. You had Pat Morita. It wasn't bad. It didn't have Van Damme, and that was a
Messi
huge
Amen was in it,
ingredient.
I believe, right?
Hmm?
Messi Amen Santo. Or was
What
that
was in the second one? A
What
Bloodsport?
wasn't he?
No, he
Who's
was in Kickboxer
or the third one?
4.
Four? Oh my God, there was four of them.
Kickboxer 4. Dude, Mark Dacascos was in Kickboxer 5.
There's a
Don't
five.
ever watch that
Okay.
movie. I like Mark
Yeah.
Dacascos, but man, is that movie bad.
It's all good. We like Mark. Mark's great.
No, yeah, Mark is great, but these movies like
Yeah.
Kickboxer
No,
5,
I know.
man.
I know. Everyone's
So when
had a
go
movie
just
where it's
circling
like,
back to the
so when can we see that movie? You're like, oh, that movie. Yeah, I don't know. I guess they're still editing it. You're like, I don't know where it is.
yeah, I mean, just
Meanwhile,
circling
it's in
back
your
to the
doorstep.
ones that missed the mark, a lot of the sequels that didn't have the original guys involved, I guess, is really a great way to summarize. Oh, okay, we might as well talk about some of your martial arts background. I mean, people need to check you out on Instagram, but let's just answer this to end things. Daryl
What
Porter, what
styles of
styles of
martial
martial
arts
arts?
have I trained in? Okay, well, my foundation, my very first thing that I did was Taekwondo. And I decided to shift out of Taekwondo 6 months in because I wanted to do more than just kick,
Mhm.
and got into karate after that. So I was pretty happy. I had my punches and my kicks, and
There you go.
it was a great combination of everything, chops and blocks, and everything was really cool. Did that up until fourth dan black belt, and then
Nice.
ventured into boxing and Greco wrestling. And at the same gym, one of the coaches mentioned this really foreign art form that I had no clue how to say or what it was. And then he's like, "Oh, you know Eddie Gordo, the guy that uses this style." And I was like, "Oh, what is that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's called capoeira." I was like, "What?" Instantly fell in love with it after he threw a spin kick known as the Melu de Compasso. It's like a dragon tail kick. Put a hand down while you spin, and your leg comes whipping behind you. And I was like, wow, okay, so it's not dance fighting, it's real. And once you
Mhm.
understand the history, why the music is incorporated, I fell in love with it. And I ended up doing that for about 19 years
Wow.
after, taught it. And yeah, I would say dabbled in jujitsu, no master, but dabbled in it. So pretty much dabbled in a lot. And then, so that would be more the martial arts side of things. And then obviously you got a chance to train with different stunt teams and take bits and pieces of Wing Chun and maybe wushu, choi fat, different styles, hungar, um, but also, oh yeah, there was kung fu that I did for about 7 years, and it was the animal styles, and yes, lots of influence from the Jackie and the dragon, the snake, the tiger. It was a panther. It was really, really, it became a huge part of my life, and I
Okay.
feel that shaped me and that gave me the discipline I needed to pursue some of the stuff I do and to stay focused,
Mhm.
doing many things that I still do until this day. So
Yeah,
that would be, yeah, that'd
the
be.
question though with the capoeira, because that's very impressive. You obviously look like a capoeira master. So when the guy mentioned like what the Tekken character, I guess, like when did you watch Only the Strong? Obviously, you had to have
Early
seen.
90s when it first came out. When it first came out, maybe like 2 years after that.
So you were doing capoeira for like 2 years, and then you finally seen Only the Strong.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So I was training unofficially with this coach because he himself was a student. And I
Mhm.
remember it was really like he was really passionate about it, but we would train to techno music, and definitely that's like it was really really hard to figure out how to do a proper ginga to techno music because it's not always that's not always going to be the pace. But once I got into it, I really fell in love with it after also watching Mark and Messi Amen do the Only the Strong movie. You see and you see the beauty, the birimbao, tong chikiting, tong tong chikiting. You're like, what? Wow, why is there music? But you realize other martial arts have it. Like in Japan, there's lots, or Muay Thai, a lot, especially before certain bouts, exhibition matches. So you see there's a lot of similarities, but
Mhm.
how the entire thing is packaged is really, really smart. And for people to still think it is a dance, these slaves working on these plantations were really smart for somebody to still, to this day, think that it's harmless or it is, just a dance or for show.
Sure, sure. So, very interesting you got exposed to it before the movie Only the Strong, because like most people just didn't know anything about it. Like I remember when I was in middle school, like a kid was like, "Hey, there's this new movie and it's the best martial arts movie ever." And I'm just like, "Dude, it ain't better than Bloodsport, but I'll check it out." And I rented it. I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh, it's pretty effing good." But it's
yeah,
funny to find out, like, oh wait, this is the same writer from Bloodsport, Sheldon Lettich, and Sheldon Lettich directed it, and obviously Frank Dukes was involved. At least there's stories of they took him off the movie later for various reasons, but yeah, there's a lot of history there. Sheldon just made some of the best movies ever because he was, in my opinion, a guy that could kind of capture that human element that a lot of these other, especially the straight-to-video martial arts movies, were missing at the time. One last question. Might as well get this one in there. What's your next big movie project? What are you working on or going to work on soon?
Ooh, okay. So I've got two projects that I'm just going to mention the titles, not too much info. One of them is a TV show, Buddy Cop Vibes, called Trickle and Flow. It's going to be really fun, really exciting, lots of action and comedy. And then another one, working title, is False Promises, and it's got a Karate Kid vibe to it. That's all I'm going to say. Never retreat, never surrender as well. So it's a really two exciting projects coming up. So stay tuned.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun. So basically, you got your Rush Hour, and then you got your Karate Kid.
Basically, there you go.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, this has been fun. Thanks so much for joining, Taz.
Yeah, and it was a blast. We got to do it again sometime soon.
Oh, for sure. Well, hopefully, we'll actually work on a movie instead of just a YouTube.
Yeah, let's make it happen. Yeah, let's make some calls and make it happen for real. Yeah,
I'll call Sheldon about Double Impact reboot.
Let's do it. We'll hop on a Zoom.
All right, thanks for joining, everybody. We're gonna sign off here.
Woohoo!